Welcome back, focused learners. Okay, so today we're tackling a massive mystery, one that impacts literally millions of people, but is still so widely misunderstood. We're going to completely demystify chronic pain. We're diving deep into the latest neuroscience to figure out exactly how pain gets trapped in the body, and much more importantly, how we can actually rewire the brain for lasting relief.
It really comes down to this absolutely crucial question. Why does pain persist when the body has actually completely healed? Honestly, it's got to be one of the most frustrating experiences imaginable. You're in very real, intensely physical pain, right? But then you go to the doctor, they run all the tests, and they tell you your MRI is completely normal. Zero structural damage, nothing torn, nothing broken, nothing inflamed. And yet, the pain is totally debilitating. So how on earth is that even possible?
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The chronic pain mystery. 2. How the brain creates pain. 3. The two arrows of suffering. 4. Bottom-up calming for the body. And finally, 5. Top-down rewiring of the mind.
Starting right off with Section 1, the chronic pain mystery.
First things first, and I really want to emphasize this right out of the gate. If you're experiencing this, your pain is 100% physically real. It's not, quote-unquote, all in your head like you're just making it up. Absolutely not. But take a look at these patterns and see if they sound familiar. Does your pain flare up before, say, a huge meeting, but then magically vanish when you're just chilling on a beach on vacation? Or maybe the symptoms kind of bounce around, moving from your back to your shoulder. Or maybe it all started right around a super stressful life event. Alan Gordon, the guy who founded pain reprocessing therapy, he went through this exact same mystery. He actually had 22 different completely unexplained physical symptoms. If you recognize this pattern in yourself, well, you're likely dealing with a brain-generated response, not a structural injury.
Which brings us to Section 2, how the brain creates pain.
So if the actual tissue isn't damaged, where's this pain coming from? Well, the culprit is central sensitization. Basically, this is the mechanism that takes a totally normal sensation and just cranks the dial all the way up, amplifying it into chronic pain. Think of your nervous system as a highly sensitive threat detection system, and right now, it's just stuck on high alert. It's constantly running this protective threat program, sounding all the alarm bells, even though there's literally no actual physical threat or tissue damage happening. This is a total game changer because it shifts our entire focus from trying to fix your joints to soothing your nervous system.
And this brilliantly illustrates what's going on. Think of a car alarm just blaring in a grocery store parking lot, right? Nobody dives for a cover behind a shopping cart. Nobody's calling SWAT. We all just kind of roll our eyes because we know for sure it's a false alarm. Well, neuroplastic pain is exactly that. It's your body's false alarm. Now, the sound is incredibly loud, it's super annoying, and the pain is absolutely real, but there's actually no danger. So the whole key to healing here is teaching your brain to recognize this false alarm and eventually just ignore it entirely.
Moving on to Section 3, the two arrows of suffering.
This concept actually comes from an ancient Buddhist parable, and it forms the entire foundation of mindfulness-based pain management. This was championed by Vidyamala Birch, actually as a way to manage her own severe long-term paraplegic pain. So the first arrow here is primary suffering. These are just the inevitable physical sensations of being a human being, right? That initial spike of discomfort. Honestly, we can't always avoid that first arrow. But the second arrow, now that is secondary suffering. That's the mental resistance, the fear, the anxiety, the sheer aversion that we end up layering right on top of the pain. We're essentially the ones shooting that second arrow at ourselves. So while we can't always control the first arrow, we can absolutely learn to control and even eliminate the second.
Next up, Section 4, bottom-up calming the body. Okay, let's get into some actionable, highly evidence-based tools, starting with bottom-up solutions. The goal here is to create an autonomic shift. See, when you're in chronic pain, you're literally trapped in a sympathetic fight-or-flight state. But by using targeted breath work, specifically diaphragmatic breathing, we can actually stimulate the vagus nerve. This is basically a physiological circuit breaker. It forcibly shifts your body into a parasympathetic rest and digest state. And when that happens, it lowers your heart rate and cuts down on that muscle guarding that keeps you trapped in the pain cycle.
So here's a super practical tool you can literally use the second this explainer's over. The 4-7-8 breathing method. It's simple. You inhale quietly through your nose for 4 seconds, you hold that breath for 7 seconds, and then you exhale very slowly and completely through your mouth for 8 seconds. That prolonged 8-second exhale, that's the biological secret sauce right there. That long exhale physically signals your brain to hit the vagus nerve and absolutely slam the brakes on your stress response. Now, what's really interesting here is this incredible evolutionary hack called the polar bear dive. Basically, you take an ice pack and hold it to your face for 10 to 20 seconds, and you combine that with a nice long exhale. What this does is trigger the mammalian dive reflex. It's this deeply ingrained ancient survival response that just instantly slows your heart rate and forces a massive rapid nervous system reset. After you do that, you reorient yourself. You name 3 things you can see, 2 things you can feel, and 1 thing you can hear. This just grounds your brain right back in the safe, present moment.
And finally, Section 5, top-down rewiring the mind. So we've calmed the body, right? Now we've got to address the brain's predictive software itself. Enter pain reprocessing therapy, or PRT. This isn't just about managing pain. It's a targeted psychological treatment aiming to actually eliminate it. It teaches your brain to reinterpret those pain signals as safe. It uses a technique called somatic tracking. Basically, you're just observing your pain very lightly, with a sense of curiosity instead of sheer fear. You're actively shifting your core belief from, oh no, my body is damaged, to, okay, my brain is just sending a false signal. By doing this, you're interrupting the fear response and just naturally turning down the volume on that annoying false car alarm.
And the results of this approach? They are absolutely staggering. In a massive, landmark, randomized trial at the University of Colorado Boulder, this was published in JAMA Psychiatry, by the way, 66% of chronic back pain patients became completely or very nearly pain-free. 66%. And that was after just 4 weeks. No surgery, 0 medication. Literally, just rewiring the brain to feel safe again.
Now, let's look at how emotional awareness and expression therapy, or EAET, stacks up against traditional cognitive behavioral therapy. There's a very clear pattern here. EAET focuses heavily on processing trauma and expressing hidden emotions, usually through stuff like writing and relationship roleplay. Well, in trials specifically with older veterans, it significantly outperformed standard CBT. It gave over 60% of those patients a massive drop in their pain levels, greater than a 30% reduction. And the retention was fantastic, keeping people way more engaged in their actual healing process.
So, the crucial point is this: the absolute truth of all this neuroscience boils down to one simple sentence. The brain learned the pain. Therefore, the brain can unlearn it. Chronic pain, it's not a life sentence, guys. It is a learned neurological pattern, and thanks to neuroplasticity, you have the absolute agency to teach your brain a completely new pattern, a pattern of safety, resilience, and comfort.
So I'll leave you with this. Which safety signal are you going to send to your brain today? Are you going to try the 4-7-8 breath? Maybe you'll practice somatic tracking and just observe a sensation with curiosity instead of fear? You've got the tools now. You understand the actual science behind it. Now it's time to put it into practice and take your life back. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and happy learning.